He kicked his own mother in front of everyone. In the middle of his grand mansion, dressed in pride and shame, Daniel did the unthinkable. He pushed away the woman who starved so he could eat, who bled her hands washing strangers' clothes so he could have a future. When she reached out to bless the home she helped build, not with money, but with sacrifice, he turned his back. And worse, in a moment of rage, he struck her. The room went silent, gasps, judging eyes. But it was her words that echoed louder than any scream. "The floor you forced me to touch today will be the same floor you'll kneel on tomorrow." And it happened. On that same day, a storm broke, and with it came the unraveling of everything he thought he owned. This is a story of pride, betrayal, and a brutal lesson in justice. If you believe no success justifies hurting the hands that raised you, comment, "Respect begins at home." The heavy gates of Daniel's mansion opened slowly, revealing a scene so far removed from where she had come that it almost made Martha hesitate. The driveway was lined with trimmed hedges, imported stones, and expensive cars. Through the tall glass doors ahead, music played, glasses clinked, and laughter echoed, a celebration of wealth, of status, of Daniel. Martha adjusted her scarf and tightened her grip on the cane that supported her frail frame. Her dress was modest, ironed with care the night before. She had taken the early bus, traveling for hours to arrive unannounced, not to intrude, but to bless, to see with her own eyes what her sacrifices had helped build. She took a deep breath, stepped forward, and rang the bell. A maid opened the door, startled. "Yes, I'm Martha," she said, smiling gently. "Daniel's mother. I came to bless his new home." The maid blinked, unsure of what to say. Behind her, voices swelled as the party continued. "I'm not on the list," Martha added softly, "but I promise I won't stay long." The maid hesitated, then slowly opened the door. Martha entered, her eyes wide with quiet amazement. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, framed art. She clutched her cane tighter. Across the room, Daniel stood in a sleek suit, laughing with two businessmen and a woman in a glittering dress. His smile faded when he noticed her. "Mother," he said, confused, almost alarmed. Martha beamed. "My son, look at this house. My heart is full." Daniel quickly walked toward her. "What are you doing here?" he whispered sharply. "You should have called." "I wanted to surprise you," she replied, her eyes wet with emotion. "Just to see it, to bless your home." He glanced behind him. His guests were watching, some already whispering. Martha's dress, her cane, her weathered face, none of it fit here. "Daniel," she continued, reaching out to hug him. "I'm so proud of you. This was our dream, remember?" He stepped back. "Not now, please. But my son, don't call me that, not here." The silence that followed cut through the music. And then he did it. In a sudden movement, fast and cruel, Daniel pushed her. The cane clattered to the floor. Martha stumbled. Gasps erupted from the guests. She tried to steady herself, but then he kicked, not hard, but hard enough. The room froze. Martha hit the floor with a small cry. She lay still for a moment, then slowly pushed herself up with trembling arms. Her breath was shallow, her face flushed with pain and humiliation. Her eyes searched his face. But Daniel looked away. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. Instead, with her voice low and shaking, she said, "The floor you forced me to touch today will be the same floor you'll kneel on tomorrow." And then, with dignity, she reached for her cane and began to walk out. No one stopped her. No one moved. The party was over. And as the door closed behind her, the sky above began to darken, as if the world itself had turned its face from Daniel. The silence inside the mansion lingered long after the door closed. Daniel stood frozen in place, his heart pounding, but his face locked in indifference. He could still feel the stares from his guests. Some averted their eyes. Others whispered behind glasses of champagne they no longer sipped. A few simply walked out without saying goodbye. The music, once vibrant, faded into background noise. One of the servers paused near the stereo but didn't dare switch it off. Daniel loosened his collar and walked toward the bar, pouring himself a drink with a shaky hand. The ice clinked louder than it should have. Outside, the air had shifted. Clouds rolled in faster than usual, thick and grey, wrapping the sky in an unsettling blanket. Leaves rustled in the wind. The first raindrop struck the window like a warning shot. Daniel took a sip of the whiskey and turned to one of his business partners, who stood stiffly near the door. "I'll call you next week," Daniel muttered, pretending nothing had happened. But the man didn't answer. He just nodded slowly, then left. One by one, the room emptied. Within the hour, Daniel stood alone in the massive living room. His reflection looked back at him from the floor-to-ceiling windows, a successful man in a tailored suit. But the hollow behind his eyes told a different story. He walked down the hallway to his home office, still trying to shake off the chill in his chest. The storm outside had grown louder. Rain pounded against the windows, wind howled through the trees, and thunder cracked so violently it shook the walls. A sudden gust forced one of the windows open slightly. Papers flew. The lights flickered. "Damn it!" Daniel hissed, rushing to close the window. As he leaned over the desk to grab the scattered documents, a folder dropped from the top drawer. It slid open on the floor, revealing an envelope, yellowed, sealed, and marked with his father's handwriting. His fingers hesitated. He hadn't seen that envelope in years. He picked it up, sat down, and slowly opened it. Inside was a legal document. He unfolded it carefully, his eyes scanning the text, and then his blood ran cold. It was his father's will. Dated, signed, and fully authenticated. The words burned into him. "All properties, assets, and shares shall remain registered under the legal name of Martha Helena dos Santos." Daniel's hands began to shake. He read it again and again. Everything, the house, the company, the cars, was not legally his. He had built his empire on what he thought was an inheritance, but it was all still in his mother's name. And it got worse. Another clause, marked in bold: "In the event of Martha Helena dos Santos's death without legal succession, all assets shall be frozen until further judicial order." Frozen. Indefinitely. Daniel dropped the paper. His mouth was dry. He stumbled backward into his chair, staring at the document as if it had come alive to mock him. Outside, a tree cracked under lightning and fell across the driveway. The lights flickered again. And suddenly, he realized something else. His company's next financial move, the biggest one of the quarter, required a legal signature. Her signature. Panic surged. He reached for his phone and dialed her number. Straight to voicemail. Again, no answer. He stood up, grabbed his keys, and ran outside into the rain, his shirt quickly soaked through. The wind hit like cold knives. The streets were already flooding. He didn't care. He had to find her. He had to fix what he had broken, before it was too late. The rain battered the windshield with relentless force as Daniel drove through the flooded streets, the wipers doing little to clear the blur of water and guilt from his vision. His hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, knuckles white, jaw clenched. Every red light felt like punishment, every passing second a reminder of the words he had spat at the woman who gave him everything. He had no idea where she would have gone. She didn't own a car. She barely had money for the bus. Had she walked home alone in this storm? Had someone helped her? Or had she simply vanished into the rain, broken and humiliated? He drove toward the neighborhood where he grew up, where she still lived, a place he had avoided for years, ashamed of the poverty, the peeling paint on the walls, the rusted fences, the memories. And now that shame felt like poison in his chest. As he turned the final corner into the street of his childhood, he saw the flashing lights before anything else. An ambulance, 2 paramedics, a small crowd gathered under umbrellas and porches. His heart stopped. He slammed the brakes, jumping out of the car before it had fully parked. Rain soaked him instantly, but he didn't feel it. "What happened?" he shouted, pushing through the crowd. A neighbor turned, startled by his sudden appearance. She collapsed, the woman said, voice hushed. Your mother. She was sitting on the steps, wouldn't speak to anyone, looked pale. We tried to bring her inside, but before we could, she fainted. Daniel's mouth opened, but no words came out. He turned to see the paramedics lifting Martha's frail body onto the stretcher. Her eyes were closed, lips slightly parted, her breathing shallow. The cane lay beside her on the wet pavement. No, 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 he muttered, rushing to her side. Mom, Mom, can you hear me? She didn't respond. One of the paramedics gently held him back. Sir, please, we need to move quickly. I'm her son, Daniel said, voice breaking. Let me ride with her. The paramedic nodded, and Daniel climbed into the back of the ambulance. His expensive shoes soaked, suit ruined, hair dripping. None of it mattered. As the doors closed and the siren wailed, he stared at her face, the same face that once sang him lullabies, that lit up when he brought home good grades, that watched him grow with pride even when he pulled away. Now it was pale, still, and terrifyingly quiet. The ride to the hospital felt like eternity. Inside the emergency room, nurses took over. Daniel was forced to wait outside, pacing, hands pressed together as if in prayer. He couldn't sit, couldn't stop shaking. She had come to bless his home, and he had sent her away with pain. He tried to remember the last kind thing he had said to her, a birthday call, a thank you. Had there even been one? His mind was blank, just images of her on the floor, her trembling voice, her quiet strength, and those words, the floor you force me to touch today will be the same floor you'll kneel on tomorrow. He fell to his knees right there in the hallway. A security guard started toward him but stopped, watching. Daniel didn't care who saw. Tears poured freely now, mixing with the water still dripping from his hair. His pride, his success, his polished image, none of it could shield him from the truth. He had everything, and yet he had failed the only person who truly loved him. Now, all he wanted was a chance to take it back. But deep down, he feared that chance had already slipped away. The fluorescent lights in the hospital corridor buzzed faintly above Daniel's head as he sat on a cold metal bench, drenched, defeated, and motionless. His hands trembled in his lap, still stained with the mud from the front steps of his mother's house. Nurses passed by, some throwing him brief, sympathetic glances, others too busy to notice. He hadn't moved in over an hour. He stared at the floor, as if hoping it would open up and swallow him whole. That floor, he understood it now, the same cold surface he had forced his mother onto with his cruelty. Now it was his altar of shame. A doctor finally emerged from the emergency ward, holding a clipboard. He walked over slowly, professional, but visibly cautious. "Are you Daniel dos Santos?" he asked. Daniel looked up, eyes red and swollen. He nodded. "Your mother is stable for now," the doctor said. "She suffered a drop in blood pressure and extreme emotional distress. Her heart is weak, and stress at her age is dangerous. She's sleeping, but we're keeping her under observation." Daniel let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "Can I see her?" "Not yet. She needs rest. The body can heal, but—" he hesitated. "She's holding something in. That kind of hurt doesn't always show up in a scan." The words pierced deeper than any accusation could. When the doctor walked away, Daniel leaned his head back against the wall. The rain had stopped outside, but inside him, the storm was only beginning. The memory replayed over and over, her smile when she walked into the mansion, the way she reached for him, and the look in her eyes when he rejected her. He had erased her in front of strangers, not just with words, but with violence. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out to see messages flooding in, business partners, news alerts, emails. Somehow, word had gotten out. One message from a colleague read, "What's going on with the company registration? You need your mother's signature. Now." He turned off the phone and dropped it beside him. He no longer cared about deals, contracts, or his company's fate. What did it matter if he lost everything, if the only person who had ever believed in him now lay in a hospital bed because of what he had done? After what felt like a lifetime, a nurse approached and spoke gently. "You can see her now. But please, be quiet. She's very weak." Daniel stood, his legs unsteady. He followed her down the corridor, each step heavier than the last. They stopped at a door, and the nurse pushed it open. There she was. Martha lay in a white hospital bed, her face pale, her eyes closed, her body looking impossibly small under the sheets. Machines beeped softly beside her. A single lamp illuminated the room with a warm but fragile glow. Daniel walked in slowly, his throat tight. He pulled a chair to her bedside and sat down, unsure what to say. "Mom," he whispered. Her eyes didn't open. He reached out, gently taking her hand, the same hand that had once held his so tightly when he was a child afraid of the dark. "I'm sorry," he said, voice cracking. I don't know what I became, but it wasn't your fault. You gave me everything, and I threw it away." She stirred slightly, but didn't speak. He lowered his head to the edge of the bed, still holding her hand. Tears fell freely onto the blanket. "I'm here. I'm not leaving," he whispered. "I just want one more chance. Please." But the only answer was the steady rhythm of the heart monitor, and Daniel sat in the silence, drowning in the weight of what he had done. The days that followed moved slowly, dragging Daniel into a routine of remorse. He barely left the hospital. Every morning, he brought fresh flowers to his mother's bedside, not the kind from expensive florists, but simple ones he bought from the old woman who stood outside the metro station, just like his mother used to. He sat beside her in silence, reading the Psalms from the tiny Bible she always kept on the kitchen shelf. He didn't know if she could hear him. Her eyes remained closed, her breathing shallow but steady. Doctor said she was stable, but the stress had taken its toll. She'd lost weight, and though her body was resting, her spirit seemed distant, buried somewhere unreachable. The nurses were kind, but their eyes told Daniel what they couldn't say out loud. This wasn't only a physical injury. His mother had been wounded in a place no medicine could touch. He tried to talk to her, about memories, about the past, about everything he should have said before. "Do you remember when I was little, and we only had one blanket?" he murmured one night, his voice barely a whisper. "You used to wrap me in it and sleep in the cold." He looked at her face, hoping for a flicker of response. "Why didn't I remember that when you showed up at my house?" Silence. He clenched his fists, fighting back the tears. He didn't want to cry anymore. It felt useless now, like pain without redemption. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline and the room filled with that soft golden light that makes everything feel fragile, Daniel stood up from his chair and knelt beside the bed. "I deserve to lose everything," he said. "I know that now." He bowed his head. "I've spent so long trying to escape where I came from. I thought success meant forgetting you, hiding you. But the truth is, everything I am came from you. Every step I took forward was because you were behind me, pushing, praying." He looked up at her again. "Please, come back. Just long enough to hear me say it to your face, that I'm sorry, that I love you, that I was wrong, so wrong." A soft knock came at the door. It was the doctor. He stepped inside with a clipboard, eyes calm but serious. "I need to speak with you," he said. Daniel nodded, standing. In the hallway, the doctor explained what Daniel had feared. "She's stable, but her condition is delicate. Emotionally, she's holding back. People her age, sometimes they choose not to fight, not because they don't want to live, but because they're tired of being hurt." Daniel swallowed hard. "Is there anything I can do?" The doctor looked at him for a long moment. "Sometimes the body listens when the heart believes it's safe again." Daniel nodded. He understood. That night, he didn't go home. Instead, he went to her small house, the one he hadn't visited in years. The paint on the walls was cracked, the furniture old, but it still smelled like her, lavender and soap. He walked through the rooms like a ghost, remembering the woman who had stretched every coin, prayed over every meal, and gave up everything for a boy who would grow into a man too proud to look back. He cleaned the floors, washed the dishes, cooked the same soup she used to make when he was sick, folded her clothes. Everything she had once done for him, he did now, not out of obligation, but because he needed to feel what it meant to be her son again, and because somewhere inside him, he hoped that the heart that gave him life would somehow feel that love returning. Morning light poured gently into the hospital room, painting soft gold across the floor and walls. The beeping of the heart monitor remained steady, a quiet reminder that Martha was still here, though her eyes hadn't opened in days. Daniel sat beside her, his hand resting over hers, the Bible now closed on his lap. He had nothing left to read, nothing left to say that hadn't already been whispered a dozen times into the silence. But today, something felt different. Not in the air, not in the light, but inside him. He leaned in close. "Mom," he whispered, "I'm not here to ask you to forgive me anymore. You owe me nothing. If all I have left is sitting here watching over you, then I'll do it for the rest of my life, if that's what it takes." He paused, swallowing the knot in his throat. "But I want you to know something. I've let go of everything. The company, the house, the money, it's not who I am anymore. You are. And if you open your eyes again, I won't ask for anything. I'll just be your son." He kissed her hand gently. Then he sat back in the chair, closed his eyes, and let himself drift into silence. It was the first time in days he allowed himself to rest. The weight of guilt was still there, but something had changed. He had finally surrendered, not just his pride, but the need to control the outcome. A few minutes passed. Then something moved. A twitch, so small it could have been imagined, but then again, a shift in her fingers. Daniel's eyes flew open. He looked down and saw her hand move under his. "Mom," he breathed, leaning forward. Her lips trembled, her eyelids fluttered, and then, slowly, painfully, her eyes opened. They were tired, clouded, but alive. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice like wind through dry leaves. He knelt beside the bed, holding her hand tightly. "I'm here. I'm right here." She looked at him for a long moment, then glanced at the small cross necklace on the nightstand. Her voice cracked when she spoke again. "I thought I lost you." Tears welled in his eyes. "You didn't. I lost myself, and I'm finding my way back because of you." A faint smile broke across her face, fragile but real. She looked away for a moment, as if gathering strength. "You hurt me," she said, her voice weak but steady. "I know. I didn't raise you to be like that." He nodded, ashamed. "I know. But you came back," she whispered, her eyes locking with his again. And in that moment, something deeper passed between them. Not a full forgiveness, not yet, but an opening, a bridge. She let out a breath and closed her eyes again, resting. Daniel sat back down, still holding her hand. That evening, when the nurse came in to check her vitals, she smiled. "She's getting stronger," the nurse said. Daniel looked down at his mother, now sleeping peacefully. "I think she knows she's not alone anymore," he replied softly. The nurse nodded, then left them in silence. As night fell, Daniel stayed by her side. No more deals, no more illusions, just a man, once blind with pride, now humbled and awake, relearning how to be a son. And on that same floor he once stood upon with arrogance, he remained kneeling, not out of shame, but out of love. Some wounds don't bleed, they echo in silence. And sometimes the greatest success is not what we build outside, but what we repair within. If you believe that no pride should ever stand above love, tell us in the comments. Forgiveness begins with humility. And if this story moved you, the next one is already on your screen. Click and discover how a hidden truth shattered a perfect family.